Hey y'all, we are back with a new kind of episode here. So I think I'm going to call this Mighty Multimedia Topics. So that's MMM Topics, right? So I've been doing these just kind of single reviews, and that's been fun. But I do want to branch out a little bit, and I think I mentioned this in the last one, and talk about just some more free flowing but not new ideas, and so things like themes, general topics, rankings, pieces to that nature. Um, so I have a few different ideas, but I'm going to start out with this pretty fun one early. I think this will unfortunately be a lot of me reading from my computer. I'll try to look up a little bit as much as I can, but it's just I have to read a lot of these ideas. These aren't things that I can just memorize or just think about earlier. So let's just get into the idea. So the title of this video is the movie trilogy rule, right? And that's a little bit deceptive, I want to say, because it's not, it's a lot more fluid than a rule, and maybe not even a standard. It's more of an observation. It's a three-part observation with, well, two-part observation with a lot of caveats and some outliers. So it's not a rule, right? Rules don't really have outliers. Let me just give you. Oh yeah. So I've been trying to dress a little bit on theme. It's kind of tough in general, but my Captain America shirt here. He has a theme. He's a trilogy movie, and we're gonna talk about him in this one. So I don't know. That's kind of fun, right? All right. So let me give you this movie trilogy rule then, right? So number one, if all three movies in the trilogy is good, so if the trilogy in itself is really solid, then the second movie is always the best, right? So that's number one. And then number two is if in the trilogy there is at least one dud, so just one, and dud is very subjective, which I think is where a lot of this not formal rule will come in. But if there's at least one dud in the trilogy, then the second movie is never the best. I know that's a little loose, but I think I'm gonna give you examples, and I think you'll kind of understand what I want to say. And then there is definitely some exceptions, which I will go into. I'm not just gonna run by it, and I'm gonna talk about that later. But it has to be like a real trilogy, right? There's some fake trilogies that I will mention later. But they actually kind of fit in the fake trilogies too, which is kind of funny. Alrighty, so the first part of it, again, just to repeat it, if all three movies of the trilogy are good, are solid, the whole trilogy works, then the second movie is going to be the best, hands down. Doesn't matter, right? So I'm going to run down some examples here. So the first one we have is Lord of the Rings. These movies are freaking amazing. Some of my favorite. Each one is amazing. It builds on, I mean, you're taking Tolkien's masterpiece, so you can't mess it up too much, but Peter Jackson did an amazing job with his really lifelike portrayal and doing them all at once, and the acting was great. But the second one, at least in my opinion, is the best, right? So the first one, The Fellowship, builds up everything, but there's nothing really super cool. I do more appreciate the battle in the woods at the end nowadays, now that I'm a little older, but still the same thing. And Return of the King is obviously great, but I don't know, there's kind of a lot going on. It drags on at the very end, but the second one is in the middle. You're in the middle of the action. You're understanding what's going on. It has all of Helm's Deep, with the Ents and Sauron's Tower, which I can't think of the freaking name of right now, but it doesn't matter. And then I can't think of where they were, but with Faramir and Frodo and Sam with the Nazgul flying above them. So it has all those going on at the same time. It's building everything up. Helm's Deep, I think, is the best battle in everything, right? But okay, so that's my first one. I think that's the best. All movies are good. Two Towers is the best. Next one is Nolan's Batman trilogy. I'm gonna try to maybe say a little bit less about this, but sorry, I just got caught up because these are so great, right? they're all really good. I don't know. You could call The Dark Knight Rises a little worse if you want to, but I don't think it's a dud by any means. But I think it's definitely not as strong as The Dark Knight, right? So Batman Begins really builds everything up, and The Dark Knight really encapsulates what no one's trying to say about Batman. But Dark Knight is the best. I mean, Dark Knight is just freaking amazing, right? With Heath Ledger. And everything going on, just it built off of The Long Halloween with Two-Face and all that. Really, I don't think many people would argue with this one. Moving on, we have Singer's X-Men, right? So the first trilogy there, so that's X-Men 1, 2, and then Last Stand. Maybe you could call The Last Stand a dud. I don't think so. I do enjoy the movie a good amount, even though it has some ups and downs. We get Beast, which is pretty great. But so the first one, again, same thing, building up fairly well, but not a whole lot actually happens. And then the third one kind of wraps up in this last big absolute battle, and you take down Magneto and everything. But the second one is where it's all about, right? With you getting the kind of Phoenix thing going on, and you get Wolverine's backstory, which is always, not always, but a lot of the time the best part of X-Men. You know, God Loves, Man Kills, basically adaptation from Chris Claremont. He's a master. That story is a masterpiece. So there's a lot of good things going on there. And I think, right, again, all three are pretty good, and 2 is the best. We're moving on to OG Star Wars, right? So that is now 4, 5, and 6. You can't call any of them dud, not even arguing with you there. But 1 builds up, introduces our characters. A long time ago, introduces everything from now, how big Star Wars is back then, right? And then 3 is good. You finally defeat the Empire, but there are some missteps with I don't know, maybe the Ewoks and some stuff there. But 2, Empire, is clearly and utterly the best Star Wars movie of all time. It has the I am your father scene. It has the hand chopping off. It opens up with Hoth, which is some of the best Star Wars ever. It introduces Yoda and all Dagobah. Freaking amazing stuff. I love when Han Solo and Leia, and you know, Chewie and 3PO are there, and their camaraderie when they are in the asteroid belt and within the worm that they don't realize. All that coming together. Putting Han Solo in the carbonite, the battle at the end, probably the best lightsaber battle of the original trilogy. So all of them are great. Empire, the second one, is the best. Still rolling, still on brand for this rule. Next one we have is Captain America, right? All 3 of them are good. Yeah, I can't even think of a bad one. The first one in World War II, pretty freaking solid. There's a lot of good stuff going on with the Red Skull. And then the last one, Civil War, is a lot of fun. Maybe some people would call it the best. You know, who knows if it's really can classify it as a Captain America movie. There is certainly a lot going on there. But I think Winter Soldier is the best. It is concise and clear. It has something to say. The choreography of the fighting is some of the best of really any movie that I've seen in a while. The mystery of the Winter Soldier, taking down of the entirety of S.H.I.E.L.D., the whole spy thriller thing going on. Black Widow is a great second fiddle. Falcon coming in, a great other second fiddle there, I guess. Third fiddle, whatever you want to call it. So again, all 3 are pretty solid. Second one is the best. Only a few more for this one. Next one we have is Pirates of the Caribbean. Some might say that the first one is the best, introducing it into a lot. And I think it does introduce an awful lot. So that's the Black Pearl. It does great. I mean, it's great. I'm not going to argue with you that there is something wrong with it, really. But Barbossa just isn't the strongest villain, I would say, maybe. And they don't really send into what makes Pirates of the Caribbean special, I would say. And 3 is good, but there's a lot going on, especially with having to deal with bringing Jack back from the dead. And then some of the pirate stuff is a little muddled. You know, when you're in the middle, when the 3 of them are fighting, why isn't everyone just fighting? I know, you know, Troy, Narnia, things like that. Send your best fighters so you don't have to fight anyone. Whatever. But I think the second one is the best. It's the most fun. It's the most lighthearted. There's so much going on with Davy Jones, Jack dying at the end, all of the betrayal and stuff. It really hits home, really comes full circle here. I think there's that scene on the island with everybody fighting back and forth, spinning on the wheel, and with that aura, you know, the crystal clear water and the palm trees and everything, fighting against the heart. I think that is peak Pirates of the Caribbean, and obviously I'm ignoring all of the other bad Pirates of the Caribbean. On Stranger Tides hasn't been too bad. I think I've only seen it once. I would rewatch that. But there's definitely a clear trilogy going on here, right? You know, I guess it's like the Elizabeth and Will Turner trilogy here. But again, going with this rule, all three are solid. 2, in my opinion, is the best. And then lastly, we have a little bit of a caveat, but I am going to give it to you. All right, so this is Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is awesome. There's no way that you can argue that any of them are bad. I think Temple of Doom is the weakest, but it's still not bad. It's a great watch. Again, ignoring the bad Indiana Joneses, it's a clear trilogy. And I know you're gonna say, "What the heck is going on?" It goes Raiders, Temple of Doom, and Last Crusade, and Temple of Doom is definitely not the best. And some people would say Last Crusade is the best. I suppose you'd be hard pressed. I would listen out the argument. Sean Connery is awesome, but I think Raiders is the best. Raiders is the most complete. He's just, you know, kind of out there doing his own thing. It's gritty and real. Raiders just it creates the whole entirety of Indiana Jones, which is kind of weird, right? Because it's the first one going on, right? But here is the little caveat, the little trick. I learned this recently, and I think I might have mentioned it in a video. Temple of Doom is actually set before Raiders, right? So I know it's a huge technicality, but it makes sense. In Temple of Doom, he's very raw, doesn't really know what's going on. In Raiders, he's a little bit more understanding of what's going on, because Temple of Doom is like 34 or something, I think, and then Raiders is like 36, 37, and then Crusade is even more into the kind of the Nazi era. But if you go through that, it goes Temple, Raiders, Last Crusade. In the middle, all three are great. Raiders is the best. So I know that's a technicality, but as you can see, I think a lot of these work pretty well for this rule. All right, so we're going on to the second part of this, the mirror image, right? If there's at least one dud in the trilogy, then the second one is never the best. I'm gonna try to run through these even faster because there's actually quite a few of these. Starting out, Back to the Future. I don't know if you want to call it 2 where they go in the future, or 3 where they go in the Wild West is the dud. 3 is probably the bigger dud. But Back to the Future 1 is a classic. It is absolutely the best, and I think 3 in the end there is a dud, if not 2. Next we have the Star Wars sequels. I would call them all duds, but we can talk about that sometime, maybe later on. But the second one is definitely not the best. I think the first one is probably the best. It's basically just a copy of A New Hope, but A New Hope is good. So they copy that, and it's got Harrison Ford and everything, obviously. So I think that is probably that's the best. And again, I probably would call them all duds, if not absolutely 3. 3 was nonsense, and I think 2 was terrible too. We can have arguments about that. I know the Star Wars fandom is a little split, but I'm going to go with that. Next, we have the Oceans trilogy. All working pretty well. Oceans is a classic movie. I just watched Oceans pretty recently. Still amazing. Just a crazy cast of characters. I can't believe they got all those people in there, some of them before they were famous, but also can't believe that they all worked together so well, that they dealt with all those egos and star power and talent, but they did. And I think you could probably call 2 and 3 duds, at least 3. But again, there's a dud there, and 2's not the best. 1 is the best. We are then moving on to the Matrix. I think you have to say that Matrix 1 is the best. Again, it's a classic. You could, I don't know, maybe say that 3 is the best too. I don't think that 2 is the best. I don't know. This is actually a tough one. I haven't watched The Matrix in a while. I think 1 is definitely far superior to all of the other ones. It just introduces the concept, and the building up until he's actually the one is kind of that moment that you're all there for. I guess 2 is pretty decent, but I think 1 is the best. 3 is probably the dud, I would call it. That's a tricky one there. Next one is the Madagascar. That's kind of a curveball there, but 3 is definitely bad. The circus, utter nonsense. 2 is not great either. With Africa, it's just the formula was Madagascar 1, and then they tried to build it off more. So some bad movies. 1 is the best. 2 is not the best. Then we have Iron Man. So Iron Man 1 is undoubtedly the best. Iron Man 1 is a great, fantastic movie. It started off really the whole MCU and a lot of the modern superhero movies in general. But 3 is a massive flop. 3 is terrible with the Mandarin and all that. The kid's pretty good, but everything else is awful. 2 is okay, but 3 is definitely at least a dud. So there's a dud. 2 is not the best. 1 is the best. Godfather, I haven't seen a lot of them in a while, but I remember 3 being really bad. Godfather 1 is obviously is the best. It's the original. I think some people say 2, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't with the Flash or whatever. No, 1 is the best. That's the one that everyone remembers. Godfather 1 is the best. There's a dud. 2 is not the best. Pitch Perfect is a fun one. So 1 is obviously the best. That's the real movie. 2 and 3 are some add-ons. 3 is awful, I will say. So 3 is definitely a dud. I don't know what the hell they were thinking there. You might be able to call 2 a dud, but 2 has some redeeming qualities as well. But 1 is undoubtedly the best. So 3 bad, 1 is good. All right, I'm gonna do some kind of rapid fire here. Ready? Cars. I think you call either 1 or 3 the best. 2 is the dud. I think probably 1's the best, but you can probably call it 3 too with the stupid spy movies. That's not Cars. Don't know what the heck was going on there. Taken, 1 is the best. The others are pretty bad. 1 is the best. Narnia, 1 is the best. Again, 3 is a dud. 3 was garbage. I don't know what the heck was going on there. 2 is actually pretty good, but 1 is the best. 1 is Narnia. You know, when you think of Narnia, that is Narnia. So again, 2 is not the best. Transformers, so the original Michael Bay. 3 Transformers, ignoring the rest because this is an actual trilogy. 2 and 3 are probably both duds. They're both pretty freaking bad. And 1 isn't the greatest movie of all time. But Shia LaBeouf screams a little bit less and screams a little bit to a better extent. And Megan Fox is good in that one. And the introduction to all of the Transformers, 1 is the best. 2 is not the best. New Star Trek. So that is with Chris Pine and all of them, Carl Urban. I would say 1 or 3 is the best. 2 with Khan is the dud there. It's Benedict Cumberbatch, shorter. I don't know, just not very good. 3 is pretty crazy. 1 is a pretty solid Star Wars, where they bring back Leonard Nimoy and such. So either 1 or 3 is the best. 2 is a dud. So 2 is not the best. And so I just wanted to also throw in that most of these, you could probably notice, is 1 is the best. So you might think it's just, you know, you make a good movie and then you make some bad sequels and it ends up making a trilogy. Some of them I think are pretty, they're definitely meant to be sequels. You know, what do you call it? Star Wars, Matrix, Iron Man, Pitch Perfect, sorry, not Pitch Perfect, Godfather. Those are definitely meant to be sequels. What do you want to call it? Probably Transformers and Star Trek are also meant to be sequels, where 1 is still the best. And I think there's a few arguments that I made that 3 might be the best, but usually 1 is the best. But you might make that argument, you know, this is kind of silly. It's just 1. These are just different trilogies. But I want to give some examples where 3 is actually kind of undoubtedly the best, because I still think this rule works pretty well. So where 3 is undoubtedly the best, we move over. We did the OG Star Wars and we did the sequel Star Wars. So the prequel Star Wars, I think 3 is undoubtedly the best. Revenge of the Sith is awesome with the Order 66 and leading into the actual OG, and just it looks amazing. It looks way better. I have a newfound respect for 1 with Liam Neeson and the character of Qui-Gon, and the importance of Qui-Gon in the saga of Star Wars. But 2 is bad. Attack of the Clones is not a good movie. Has some redeeming qualities, but in general, really bad. Lucas, it seemingly had a decent movie, but people didn't like the boring politics, so he tried to pivot, made it way worse, and then figured it out in the end. So 3 is the best here, but there is a dud in the trilogy, and 2 is not the best, and 1 is not even the best, 3 is the best. And the other one is the modern Thor. The first one was pretty boring. Dark World is one of the worst Marvel movies out there, and Ragnarok is amazing. I know that whatever nonsense Love and Thunder came out now, I'm going to ignore that. I think it was 3. I like the trilogy. Ragnarok or Love and Thunder was so bad that I just don't even want to talk about it. So you have these 3, and 1 was boring, 2 was awful. So there's a dud in the trilogy. 1 and 2 are not the best. 3 is the best. So you can see that it can be 1 or 3. Just kind of wanted to dispute that myth there, because I'm sure someone kind of criticizing my theory, my standard here, would point that out. Okay, so we are moving back, returning back here. I never promised that this rule was perfect. In fact, I said that it specifically was not, so I want to go through a few of the exceptions here, and it's going to create a little bit of an interesting discussion. So I do appreciate this in general. So the first one, and this is very up in the air, I think, is the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, right? So I would argue that 2 is the best. Some people might argue that 1 is the best. I think just Alfred Molina as Doc Ock is just too good, obviously. Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin is really great, but I think just Alfred Molina kills that role. You don't see Doc Ock too much nowadays, even though he is a great Spider-Man villain, and as well as the whole kind of Spider-Man No More and everything not Spider-Man related going on in that movie is really good. So I think it's either that, and the other big one is that 3 is a problem. A lot of people would say that 3 is a dud. The biggest reason that is just you stuff too many in there, right? So Topher Grace's Venom should have stayed on that 70 show. Sandman, I don't remember his name, and James Franco's Goblin Jr., whatever you want to call it. There's just stuff too much into it. I think that it has some redeeming qualities. I wouldn't exactly call it a dud. So there's the 2 pathways, right? So either it doesn't work because 1 is a dud, but 2 is still the best, right? Or it doesn't work because 3 is not considered a dud, but 1 is considered the best. I think that's a tough conversation. So I wanted to put it here down in exceptions. And maybe when I talked about the Matrix might have been in here, but I think I might have explained my way out of that. The next one is Toy Story. I think my girlfriend just mentioned this, that I should put this in here. I never really liked it. I don't remember a lot of them. I can't really speak on it, but I don't know, maybe they're all good in 1 and 2 is not the best. I don't really know. So these next big ones I can definitely speak on. I really enjoyed them, and they are definitely exceptions. 1 is Kung Fu Panda. They're all great. They're all great in their own ways. I really want to watch Kung Fu Panda 2 again recently. I'm going to do that because I haven't seen that one in a while, but it's still very good. They're all very good. Great voice acting, great concept, hilarious, looks amazing. But 1 is the best. 1 is the OG Kung Fu Panda, undoubtedly the best. So they're all of them are good. There is no dud, but 2 is not the best. 1 is the best, so that's an exception there. Same one is How to Train Your Dragon. I would call all 3 of them good. Some people might dispute 2. I think 2 is still pretty good. There's another one I should rewatch again. But I think they're all pretty good. Just the concept of the dragon. I read the books, which are a lot different, but those are fun. So I get it. But again, more great voice acting, more great visuals, just good stuff. 1 is the best. 1 is the OG. That explains everything that's going on. So I think 3 is the best, or they're all great, but 1 is the best. 2 is not the best. Breaks from the rule. Exception. Last one I have here under exception is Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't think I'm going to get any pushback here. All of them are good. All of them are really solid. 1, 2, and 3 is great. The third one just came out and was really good, but I think 1 is still the best. It started out, it brought everyone together, and it just exploded on the stage, the cultural significance, and the simple nature of it before it got muddied with a lot of other characters. So I think they're all great, and 2 is not the best, 1 is the best. So again, an exception. I don't think these exceptions ruin the rule. They do make it not a rule per se, because there are these big exceptions here. So again, more of just a theory going on here. But I wanted to put these out, and again, I thought this was some interesting discussion. The last piece here that I want to touch on, and that I mentioned earlier, are these kind of fake trilogies. I think there's only a few. Yeah, there's only 4 of them that I have here. I wanted to mention them because it's interesting, because I don't really consider them actual trilogies, but they do really subscribe to this rule, the movie trilogy rule TM that we have. So I'm just gonna run through these. So the first one is falls under the first branch here. If all 3 movies are good, the second one is the best. The first one I have is Terminator. Terminator, I mean, there's a lot of them, but you can cut it off into that first 3, but I don't think it's really an actual trilogy. You could maybe call it that. I don't think it was really meant to be a trilogy, but they are all pretty solid. I think the first one is Terminator, and the third one, it has its ups and downs, but I think it's pretty fun. And 2 is the best, Judgment Day with the little kid, and with the T-1000, I think it was what it was. So it's, the little liquid metal and all that, just great stuff. 2 is the best there. The next one is Alien, but as I'm considering, that doesn't make any sense because 3 is really bad, I think. So scratch that. But either way, 2 is the best. So that might fall into more of an exception, but again, it's not really a trilogy. 1 is its own movie. 2, because 1 is a thriller horror movie. 2 is just a plain action movie. 3 is just CGI nonsense, and they're not too interconnected. They're kind of interconnected, but it's not like it wasn't meant to be a trilogy. It didn't really round it out. Very far apart. Same thing with the Terminator there. So even if it doesn't fall against my rule, I'm seeing that now. Whoops, embarrassing. All good. It's not really a trilogy, so it doesn't matter. And then moving on to the other one, if there's at least one dud, the second one is never the best. I have Men in Black. So Men in Black 1 and 2 are pretty close to each other, but 3 it waited so long, it's so different. It is pretty good. I don't think you can really call it that much of an actual trilogy. And I think 2 is the dud, even though it's connected to 1, but I think 2 is pretty bad. They just didn't really know what to do there, and 1 is the best. I mean, 1 is Men in Black. That is what you think of when Men in Black. It's a little bit more dated along with these other ones, but it's definitely the best. So there is a dud in 2, and 2 is not the best. 1 is the best. And the last one is the Wolverine trilogy. Again, I don't think you can call it a trilogy because they're all very different movies. That's kind of how Wolverine works. I guess you have different points in his life that you can jump into, but I wouldn't call them trilogies because they're very devoid from each other. They're more of just different spin-off movies from the original X-Men. But even though X-Men Origins is kind of a guilty pleasure of mine, I think that 3 is the best, which is, coming back to 3 is not usually the best. 3 is the best in this one, and I think 2 is the dud. It's not awful. Wolverine, when he goes to Japan, fights the Silver Samurai and such, but it's just not really Wolverine. It just doesn't do a great job, for me at least. So I would say that there is a dud. 2 is the dud. 2 is not the best. 3 is the best. So again, these are all fake trilogies. They don't really count, but I just wanted to throw these in there because I thought about them. You might be interested. So yeah, that is wrapping everything up. So I kind of want to do a little bit of reflection here. I do recognize that, right? So if you get a trilogy right, 2 is the natural high point. 2 is what's going to work, right? So you build it up in 1. 2 is where everything really comes by, and then you have the ending, the denouement, and you wrap everything up. You pay everything off, right? So 2 is the natural high point, the climax, if you will. So I do recognize that. So if you're doing a trilogy right, if they're all right, that's how it works. But I just thought that this was extremely interesting. I was just kind of sitting around, and this popped into my head for a few of them. Probably I was watching Trilogy or something, and then I kind of took the rule, took the proof, and applied it to a bunch of different ones, and it just seemed to work almost every single time. Of course, I ran into some exceptions, and I wanted to be honest and give those exceptions, but I thought it was a really intriguing observation about why these worked so often and so perfectly, why this mold really functioned in a lot of different ways. And it also was enabled me to talk about all of these great trilogies. I mean, I don't know how much I ran through. It's got to be, I don't know, like 30, at least maybe a little bit more trilogies. So that's pretty cool to just be able to talk about all these. Trilogies is an awesome medium, way to tell a story. Again, a 3-part act makes a lot of sense. It has been used for a lot of different genres, as we can see. And of course, more. A lot of them I just haven't seen or just don't really enjoy. But you can comment down if there are some other trilogies down there in the comments. Add if there's a trilogy that you want to talk about. See if it fits the mold. And in general, argue with me about some of these. Some of it is subjective, certainly. So if you disagree with which one is the best or whether one is a dud or not, I would love to get some healthy debate back and forth going here. That would be awesome. I think these this format in general, this MMM topics, I coined that here, will invite a little bit more conversation in general there, so I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if I mentioned in this one, but I at least mentioned in the other one. If not, I have a few other ideas about this topics here for the upcoming holidays. So Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, I think I could do it pretty well. They're pretty spread out every once in a while. Let me know if you like this and you'd like me to do more. I think it's going to be more rankings categories rather than this theory, but I do have a few other theories or generality kind of things that I've thought about that need to be teased out more, but that I could probably tease out to warrant another video. But this was really interesting. I enjoyed talking about this. I definitely did look at my screen a lot, so I'm gonna see how that looks. If it looks really bad, I might want to change it a little bit. The way I do it kind of before is get an idea and then jump into it and cut it back. But there was just so many that I was just ticking down towards. I had to look at it, but it might not even be that bad. And this will probably kind of lay the groundwork for how I do these topics ones in general. But I think if I'm doing rankings or general, I say the word general a lot. If I'm doing topics, if I'm doing rankings or just ideas, topics, then I think it'll lend itself a little bit more towards not looking at the screen and just talking. So we'll see. But this was awesome. I loved doing this. In a while, I'll probably get back to the reviews. I'll probably do those one after another there. I think that'll work pretty well. And we'll see if this lended itself to any fun shorts. I'm sure there's got to be 1 or 2 in there. So keep an eye out for those. I really, getting videos, getting likes and views on these long form ones is going to be difficult. It's going to take a while. But the way to do that is to get some traction on those shorts, I think. So please, watch those, like those, share those if you could. I want to get those moving so that I can maybe get some people into this one, the longer form videos as well, and really build a worthwhile channel here. As I grow, as I get better at this, as we get some more information and such, probably a lot better with the visual and the audio and the editing and such will help a lot as well. But I think we're already on the right path. We are moving on an upward trajectory. So thanks for hanging in there. That is enough for me for right now. Signing off.